All right, so there we go. It's like, welcome to the YouTube channel, Scotchy Bourbon Boys Extra. We have Royce and Rebekah Neeley with us.
Hello.
Hey, guys.
She's always telling me, look at the camera, not at the screen. And then I am Tiny. This here is Xavier and
Greetings.
Roxy. And so I've been looking forward to this, I think, ever since I was at the distillery, there in September.
Yeah,
when
September 12th.
We had a blast at the distillery.
Yeah,
Or 11th. That was the 11th. Yeah.
Was that on the way down to the Bourbon Festival?
Sure
Yeah.
was.
It was,
Yep.
yeah.
I thought it was. Okay, I thought
So
so.
you were there, inaugurated the Bourbon Week.
Yeah.
What a way to kick it off, man. That was great.
Well, we walked in and Rebekah was there, and we were thinking, well, we're on our way down. We'll spend an hour, do a little distillery tour. And 3 hours later,
4 hours.
I'm here coming to Kentucky Bourbon Fest and thinking I've drank the best absinthe I've ever drank in my life. And it's like, what the heck's going on here?
I didn't mean to keep you guys for that long. I swear
My God, it was our pleasure.
it just happens, and I hate to say it happens more often than not. When whiskey people show up, I show up as well, and I make sure that they have the best time that they can have at our distillery. And so that it just kind of ends up being, I really always hope that they're not in a rush.
Well, I'll tell you
No,
what.
we weren't. Yeah.
From the tour to the tasting, your gentleman that conducted it, and his name's escaping me.
Matthew Wright.
Matt. Yeah.
Yeah.
What a great guy. And no, he didn't slip us any money to say this either. He did an outstanding job answering all our questions and about the process and this, when we were there tasting just different aspects of the expressions and why they were picked and how they came to be. And it was one of the most, if not the most informative tour and tastings that I'd ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of the way I designed it from the beginning, and I'm really glad you said that, because that's what I want people to take away from it. We try to not just repeat what you're going to hear at a lot of the other distilleries. We just kind of try to focus on what makes us different and kind of how what we do affects the taste of what you got. And then we try to do a pretty intricate tasting as well, where we just show people that could be a novice with whiskey how to drink it. And Matthew does a great job, so I'm very lucky to have him. And he's actually going down to run our other distillery in the mountains when we get that open. And I'm going to miss him a lot up here at this distillery when he goes.
when is that opening?
We're probably going to have it open in April. My dad was down there working all day on it today. The entire second story's done, and they're doing the flooring on the first floor. So I mean, we're really close on it.
Awesome.
Good deal.
How far away is that distillery from you guys right now?
It's about 2 hours from us. So we're up in Sparta, North Central Kentucky, and this is in Slade, which is right in the middle of Daniel Boone National Park at the Natural Bridge Natural Bridge State Park in Eastern Kentucky. So and the cool thing about it is it's about a 10 minutes bird's flight from where my family used to distill illegally at.
Yeah, I think you mentioned we heard we got wind of that, and that was on your family's original land. So what kind of time that are you going to be taking a lot of 2-hour drives back and forth, or are you building another house right there on the
Oh God.
No more house building, Tiny. That's true. I'll never go through that again in my life.
The house you built is spectacular. It's really cool to see your house right from the distillery. And then you just have that wide open window view of the distillery. It's awesome.
That's all Becca. She designed all that, and she wanted to look like a rick house. And I think my old man, he took her vision and made it a real thing. But
he delivered.
Yeah, but on that mountain distillery, we built a living quarters on the second floor of it. So Matthew's got a full apartment up there, and then there's a side room to where I'm going to stick a bed in that one as well, to where when I go down there, I can stay the night if I need to and things like that. But yes, I don't know what it's going to be like till I get it open, but I expect to be making a lot of trips back and forth.
I can only imagine getting it up and running and getting like you already did it with this one. The pros and cons.
Right.
So just a little bit, the one thing you were saying where the experience is a little bit different coming to your distillery. And honestly, just from the moment that you're there, you come off of, it's what, 60, is it 65? No,
71.
71. Yeah, you come off of 71 and you notice that you're right across the street from the entrance of the Kentucky Speedway. And then you see it there, and it's really the only thing there, but it's just so impressive. It's just kind of like, it feels really homey and inviting. And so you go in and then you meet everybody. But then once you start that tour and you get Bo Cumberland's vision of what he put down for, that whole movie that he did, and then you start to understand what kind of how ingrained your family is in Kentucky and in that area, and what everybody went through, and just how much experience and knowledge was passed on through the years to get to you. And then it's like, I love your part of the story, when you read about it, that you went to you were distilling in college, and you just kept everybody just kept wanting more and more.
That's pretty much how it went.
If you make it, they will come.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I was always fascinated with distilling, and I'd always heard all the stories and saw the old still sites, and that's actually how I found the place in Eastern Kentucky. I was driving back to visit family members down there in the mountains, and I kept seeing more and more people, in the tourism building in the area, and that's the same route that Dad would take me, my entire life, and I just really fell in love with it. And when I got into college, I actually went to a frat party. I don't tell this story a whole lot, but this is the God's honest truth. I went to a fraternity party, and there was a guy there from my high school. I'm not going to say what his name was, but I know he has no experience making moonshine. And he's just slinging gallon jugs of sweet tea moonshine and apple pie moonshine for like $50 a pop. I mean, just selling the daylights out of them. So I go over to him. I'm like, hey, where do you got your still set up at? He's like, I ain't got a still. I just buy Everclear, flavor it, and sell it to these idiots. That's the exact way. It's the exact way he said it to me. And I'm like, wow, for one, doing stuff like that in the mountains will get you killed.
Yeah.
And two, my mind starts working, and I go to my roommate and I'm like, look, I know that we can make it a whole lot cheaper. He's paying $30 a fifth for that Everclear. I know we can make it a lot cheaper than that. So I start picking the brain of my dad, really my Uncle Bones, a lot, and picking the brain of him. And we built us a little still and just kind of took off from there. And we undercut this guy at first. And then once we got him out of the picture, then we started raising our prices up, and it took off from there, to the point where I thought I was probably going to get caught and go to jail for it.
Did you get him out of the picture or hire him?
No, there was no hiring. We just, we could undercut him from the price, because once again, I could make it for, $2 a quart inside of it. And then, he was having to, keep his price higher, and we undercut him and got him out. And once people started drinking ours, they never looked back at him.
Yeah, it had to taste a lot better too.
I think so. I mean, don't get me wrong, Tiny. I've come a long way since then. And anybody that drank the whiskey I was making back then, it was, I was developing skills to cut those heads at the time. But
yeah, and that is a skill. There's no doubt about it. It's like, but what the thing that you had going for you is nobody died, right?
That's true. Not that I know of, anyways. So. There was a time after the first run, I sat down with my still hand at the time, and I said, "All right, you gonna drink it, or you want me to drink it?" And he's like, "Let's just drink it together," because I actually full blown not knowing if I was gonna wake up blind the next day or not. But yeah, come out all right.
I had a friend, and when we were heavily into absinthe, and he had a still in his garage, and I bought the absinthe kit where the wormwood was shipped to us and everything, and he ran it through the still, and what he initially gave me, I have no idea. He ran it through the still with wine. He put it in, we did it and put it in wine, and then ran it through the still. But what he gave me tasted like absolute freaking poison. I swear to God, it did not have anything nothing like absinthe. There was no so I started like dropping actual like black candy licorice into the bottles to see if I could, after time.
You'd have done better taking what you put on a patch and run through your rifle after shooting it and dropping black licorice in that than what that stuff was.
It was no kidding. So bitter. And it just like, you take a little sip, and I think I probably had like 2 or 3 sips before I got rid of it, but I wasn't gonna. But then when I started to understand distilling, when you start to get into this and you start to understand and you look at this, I mean, like when you are distilling, you have people's, lives in your hand if you do this wrong. I mean, if you just run, if you don't know what you're doing and you just run the whole run and you leave everything alone, you're putting, it is poison. So you have to somewhat know what the fuck you're doing, right?
Yeah. And this is, I'm a big advocate for, legalization of home distilling and things like that. But don't get me wrong, that is definitely something on the other side of it that, is that unlike making wine or beer, distilling can be dangerous, not only from what you're making, but the way you make it. And that's even that's still even a problem today, even at a commercial distillery, is, making sure that whatever you're putting your spirits into, and people use different types of plastic sometimes. And, there's certain plastics that'll leach and some that won't, that are more resistant. I mean, you always have to be conscious of that. And, there's still lead solder floating around, especially working on like an old still, like our absinthe still we're working on. We've had to be conscious and check it and things like that of lead solder that's in it.
Yeah, I understand that completely. I mean, they're so much into it's an art form, and so many people did it and made things so many different ways. I mean, you can make a still almost out of anything, but that doesn't mean you should.
That's true. That's a good point.
Well,
I've seen them in the mountains made out of, those 55-gallon steel drums was a big thing because they were so much easier than a copper pot. And I mean, you're talking about paint sometimes on the, chips of paint falling down in them and everything else.
Lead paint.
What my main job is recycling. I'm a plant manager at a recycling plant, and the totes that a lot of the distilleries, those 320-gallon totes that with the steel cages that a lot of distilleries are mashing it. But then you think about it, it's like, is that a PCB free plastic that they're putting chemical? You see it all the time, and it's kind of like, that's why when you start to get into what you're doing as far as the legal side of it, there's so much of it, what would you say, that because of how it's all set up and the kind of money that you can make and put into it, you can then start to really pay attention, especially when you're building the distillery like you did.
Yes, sir. Yep, definitely.
All right, so that was some good extra
content. Yeah.
So do you want to get this? We'll just get the regular podcast started.
Sure.
All right, we will start. We got to wait 30 seconds, and then I'll hit the play button on the music.
Dant Crossing, Gethsemane, Kentucky. Timeless hospitality that stirs the spirit. Dant Crossing is a one-of-a-kind destination for unforgettable weddings, memorable corporate events, day trips, and weekend getaways. The pastoral campus is anchored by Log Still Distillery and includes an amphitheater that seats 2,000, a 12-acre lake for fishing, and unique lodging options, creating an immersive experience that's rooted in the community and culture of our little slice of Kentucky. More attractions will open soon at Dant Crossing, including our 21,000 square foot distillery, which we will have the ability to produce 15,000 barrels of spirit each year, a network of wooded walking trails, fully functional private train depot, farm-to-table restaurant, and the Legacy, a premier wedding and events venue. Whether you're looking to host an event, book a stay, or reserve a tasting, we're ready to welcome you. Learn more at dantcrossing.com.
Spirits of French Lick is proud to introduce the Maddie Gladden Bottled and Bond Bourbon. This 4-year aged bourbon is double pot distilled and non-chill filtered and has a full-bodied mouthfeel with eucalyptus, molasses, clove, ginger, and slight citrus as well as grains of paradise. The finish is long and reappearing on the back of the tongue with notes of pepper, tobacco leaf, and mint green. All of our spirits are available for tasting and purchase inside the French Lick Winery and Distillery. Spirits of French Lick. Respect the grain, please enjoy responsibly, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you, I tell you, I tell you we must die.
All right. Welcome back to another podcast of the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. Woo! We have two very special guests tonight on the podcast. We have Royce and Rebekah Neeley from the Neeley Family Distillery. Welcome.
Welcome.
Hello, guys.
How's it going, guys?
I am Tiny. This here's Xavier, and this here is Roxy.
Welcome, everyone.
So we were talking a little bit before on the YouTube part, but one of the things getting into this, the two of you doing this together, as far as how I have no idea. Just give me the story of how you guys met and how everything kind of evolved and where it's at right now.
So I founded the distillery in 2015, and somewhere around in 2016, midway through 2016, 2017, I met Steve Akeley. We opened to the public in July of 17 of that year, and I was on Akeley's podcast, and I actually met Rebekah through those podcasts, through the Bourbon Daily, and I was on some of the shows, and
I would give him a bunch of shit all the time.
she would
as often as possible. I would just give him shit all the time.
Pretty sure she hated me, but
so much so that I would just be myself, frankly.
I guess technically we met at the 2019, right? New Orleans Bourbon Festival.
And I did not like him.
I was only down there for a short period of time, but yeah.
I met him, but I was like, screw that guy. I don't really like that guy anyways. And so we met pretty briefly. It was for like maybe 10 seconds. It was like,
we were only there for like 4 hours.
Yeah.
Me and my family drove down, straight down there, did the tasting and stuff that night, and got the award we actually got a call that we were getting this. So anyways, we come straight down for it. And then we left that evening and went straight back to Kentucky.
The funniest thing about them winning that award was, so mind you, it's the New Orleans Bourbon Festival. So you are drinking pretty much all day, and they go around with the awards, and they do kind of a New Orleans thing where they do a parade, and they've got like banners and things like that. And they kind of like tote around to the next people, and they go around to find the people who are going to win the award. And I knew that Neeley's were going to win the award, and they were going to find them, and they went past them because they didn't know where they were at. And so I had actually ran up drunkenly to the, I think, Tracy Napolitano, and I ran up and I said, hey, you guys pass the Neeley's, they're back there. And so they stopped the parade, turned it around because I told them they needed to, and they went and found them, which they didn't know that. And I didn't know anything, like whatever, that wasn't a big deal or anything, but it's kind of funny to think about now.
Yep.
But then we all ended up going down to Key West for a distiller's vacation, and that's where I officially hung out with Royce.
That was in January of 2020.
Yes.
Was Bishop there?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep. That's the first time I got to meet Alan too.
Yeah, because I remember, because I knew Alan by that point, and I remember him posting that whole Key West wild. That seemed wild.
It's a great time, by the way. You all should come to it next year.
I was walking around Duval Street with 2 bottles of Allen's whiskey in my back pockets, offering them to strangers. And that's how I single-handedly spread COVID all throughout all of Florida.
See, it wasn't even a thing then. I never even heard of it at that Key West trip.
Yeah, I agree. It was just starting, but it had already been here.
Oh yeah.
It was obviously everybody. You talk to people all week, but that's neither here nor there.
Right. Yeah.
So that's where we hit it off. And after we left that, he had messaged me in the middle of the week and asked, "Hey, we go on a friend's vacation to Gatlinburg every year. Do you want to come with? It's just me and 30 of my friends." And I'm like, "Yeah, why wouldn't I want to go and hang out with a guy that I've hung out with once?" With 30
and 30 of his friends.
Sounds like a blast.
I was sitting at a bar when I decided. So I had some liquid courage when I decided to ask her, and I just sent her over a photo of the front and back of my credit card and said, "If you want to go, just book you a flight and I'll pay for it."
I said, "Screw it."
And I couldn't believe it. She did. Then it became real quick.
And so we hung out, and then another probably 10 days later, he flew to Minot, where I lived at in North Dakota. And he flew up there for Valentine's Day, not intentionally for Valentine's Day, but it just ended up being Valentine's Day. And we hung out with a bunch of my friends and my family. And I had actually said to one of my best friends on the Sunday before he left, I said, "I'm going to marry him." And she goes, "Wait, are you serious?"
What, that guy you don't like?
we weren't even dating yet. Yeah, the guy I didn't even like. Because we weren't even dating yet. And I said, "I'm going to marry him." And she's like, "You're serious?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm going to marry him." And we were dating in another 2 weeks after that. But we officially started dating February 22nd. We were engaged by March 16th, and we were married June 10th.
Wow. Awesome.
Congratulations. Well,
that is great.
So that's so much similar when myself and Roxy, we met. The night we met, I had just gone to this, we're originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I had gone to a bar to pick up tickets, and we're in Milwaukee, but the tickets were for a festival up north, probably about 5-6 hours away. I was just there because the woman who tends bar there had the tickets. And I met her, and
I got dragged out of bed by my girlfriend, who didn't want to go to the bar alone because she had this thing for the bartender, and she didn't want to look like a stalker, although they didn't call it that back then.
Word hadn't
but
been
she's
invented yet.
called me. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm sleeping." And she's like, "Well, get dressed. I'm coming to get you. We're going to RC's." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, whatever." So I just threw on a sweater and a stupid jeans and didn't do anything to my face or hair or whatever. And I just sat at the bar drinking I'm pretty sure I was drinking Alabama Slammers. And that was my drink of choice back in the day.
Hell yeah.
And my friend was sitting to my left, and Jeff's friend was sitting to his right. And one went to the bathroom, one went to go get the tickets, and there were the two of us sitting alone in this bar or at the back of a bar where there was nobody. And I thought, "Oh, he's adorable. I'm gonna strike up a convo." He was totally not my type because he had bleach blonde hair. He was wearing Billy Idol gloves and a half net shirt and a leather jacket, and the ass of his jeans was ripped out. And he looked really bad. And there was some motorcycles out in the parking lot. And I thought, oh, maybe those are his bikes, And I always dated like straight-laced guys. So I was feeling a little bit, I don't know, dangerous that night, only to find out that's the exact opposite of what Jeff is.
Yeah.
He was just a total poser. But the hair was
But she went home that night. So we just kind of like flirted a little bit, and I couldn't believe, Royce, I couldn't believe she talked to me.
Yeah.
All of a sudden she's like, "Hey, what do you think of this article, on this dumb paper between us?" And I'm like, is that girl talking to me?
Yeah, what?
I couldn't believe it. So I started talking to her. So, but right, we talked a little bit and whatever, but I had to leave, and
he was there all of about 10 minutes.
But I got her number on a matchbook.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Very cliche.
She wrote it on a matchbook. And then I asked her before we left if I could give her a kiss goodnight. And she said yes. So I gave her a kiss.
Again, I wasn't in the
You were living dangerously.
I wasn't in the business of kissing strangers.
But your friend just ripped the shit
my
out of
girlfriend just laid into me. She goes, "What are you doing? Who your kid?" I walked back here and I find you making out with some dude that you don't even know. And I said, "Okay, but that was like the kiss of the century. So I hope that happens again." Anyway, the part of the story that's similar is I went home and my mom, who was, I guess I was late or whatever. And I said, "Don't worry, Mom, I met my husband tonight."
There you go.
Same thing.
And she goes, "You can't meet your husband at a bar, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Oh, no, I really did. I met my husband tonight."
I met Karen, aka Mrs. Xavier, at a bar. I knew her friend, and we were just friends. She played pool with the guys, and I'd seen her with this little blonde, and it was like, okay, that's cool. And there was this one night, they were just trying to sit and have a drink, and there were a couple of guys that wanted to sit at their table and were kind of annoying them and harassing them. And Kathy went and got me, and being the bruiser that I am, I went over and
chatted, and the rest is history.
Yeah, no, I basically, dumped their drinks and told them to get the hell out. And I had no brains then. Yeah. And all the time saying a novena that it wouldn't really break into a real fight. But, then I went out with Karen, and being the incurable romantic that I am, I took her to see a movie on our first date. Apocalypse Now. Nothing more romantic than seeing Marlon Brando drop the guy's head in the other guy's lap.
Isn't that 3 hours long?
And somehow she still married me. I'm not sure how that went down, but that's the ugly truth.
So marriage is hard. So and you work together and married together. So I'm sure that poses some challenges.
We do
a lot of things together.
We do everything together. Before being in the house, we lived in that hotel down the road for 465 days together in our first year of marriage. Which I think that if we can make it through that, then there's
you're
no way that anything else could.
We're approaching June the 10th. We're approaching year 2.
Yeah, it's gonna be year 2.
That's awesome.
That's great.
So Tiny, kind of similar. All right. So you asked her that same night. So when I'm down in Key West, me and Becca are bar hopping. At this point, I've been trying to drink everybody else under the table so I can get some alone time with her, because there's a whole crew down there. I finally do. And I think back to myself, I'm like, all right, I'm going to try to kiss her. And I think back to some podcast I was on where she talked about this guy trying to kiss her once, and she punched him in the face and broke her hand. I'm like, I can punch in the face, I'm not but I really don't feel like having my nose readjusted while I'm down in the US. So I finally, liquid courage got the best of me. I said, if she hits me, she hits me. Didn't, thank God.
I did not punch him. He spun me around and laid one on me, and I let him kiss me. I did not punch him in the face. So he, I guess, lucked out on that one. But
we do work together at the distillery, but she spends most of her time, like when she met you guys, up front in the gift shop helping out, and most of mine now is in the back, a lot of mine's just paperwork anymore. I spend half my day on the phone. It seems like it wears me out. My passion and love is not, I'm not one of these business owners that likes my feet propped up in the office. I love being in the distillery. I love distilling. I like getting dirty. I love being on top of everything in there. And sometimes I don't get to do that as much as I like to anymore. And I do miss that, but.
Well, from going around doing podcasts with all different distilleries at different levels, I think at one point, you're in that you jump started it already, but now you got to get the product, keep aging that product and get it to the point. But once you establish that brand, a lot of what you're doing now, you'll be able to, you can like settle in. Some people you'll be able to dictate some of what you're doing. You know what I mean? You kind of
can delegate
what, you know, of what some of the stuff and get more into the distilling.
Absolutely. You know, we've got mash bills obviously locked in now. We've got years of notes we can go back and look at just to, you know, make sure fermentations are going the same as what we were doing before. And all that takes a lot of pressure off. But, you know, my passion still is definitely being in there some days. Other days, like when the cooker breaks down, I'm up underneath of it covered in mash for 3 hours. And, you know, it's great because I'm on the distillery property. It's also terrible that I'm on the distillery property because everybody else gets to leave at 6 o'clock. But if that cook still needs to, you know, or that still needs finished up, you know, I'm down there until late at night a lot of times, sometimes 9, 10 o'clock at night. I used to live in the place. I don't know if you all knew that at all or not before, but yeah, I actually have a bedroom in the back of it and used to stay there all the time.
Oh, wow.
That's just what it takes to get one going.
Let's clarify real quick this bedroom in the back.
Is it like a cot?
I got to stay in it only once when I first moved here. It was a twin bed in the back storage room there's a shower and there's a toilet. There's no window, and it is the most depressing room you could ever be in.
What more do you need?
Solitary confinement.
So
you have zero concept of what time it is because there's no light.
That's perfect.
It's horrendous. And he's realizing that now that we live in this house with our big windows out front where the sun comes up in the morning and it makes you happy and it slowly wakes you up as opposed to frantically waking up and going, holy crap, it's 10:30 and I'm supposed to be awake at 9 o'clock, but I had no idea because I have no sunlight. I've got nothing to tell me what time it is. So
and the employees all were working, but they'd let you sleep, right?
You didn't really have any employees.
I only
It
have
was
one.
just you. Okay.
Yeah,
and then, you know, mom and dad, and Pap all in there with me, but yeah, I just had one guy on staff. He didn't come in till 11, so.
And he was usually awake by then, I guess.
So reading your family history, and there's a lot of the dramatic part of it, but then there's also, I noticed that Neeley men a lot of them seem to live a really, really long life. The ones that didn't get shot.
That's true. There is a lot of longevity in our line. I probably won't make it to 40 personally, but the stress is going to get me.
Just fall in the shot category.
That's me. I'm stressed. That's my middle name.
Match made in heaven.
Yeah.
I will tell you an interesting thing, guys, is so my great grandfather, and that's his moonshine recipe that we still run down there. He was born, so he lived to be 101. So he was born in 90. I was, 1890. I was born in 1991, the year that he died. He got to hold me. I think he held me twice, and then he passed away. But him and I essentially are living like the same timeline, 100 years apart, if that makes sense.
Cool.
That's neat.
Yeah.
It is interesting. And what's kind of cool about it is so 2020, obviously all the change that we're experiencing, what happened in 1920?
Yeah,
Prohibition. Yeah, exactly.
So his world is turned upside down as well. So I don't know, it's just kind of interesting. Sometimes I sit back and think like, what was he dealing with? What kind of stuff was he at? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just kind of neat to me.
Yeah, well, I agree.
Isn't that where the saying "same shit, different day" comes from? I think pretty much. I mean, it varies a little bit, but in the final analysis, it's the same thing.
Yes, the history does repeat itself. Yeah. That's for sure.
Well, let's hope that the government understands now today what that government didn't understand was that prohibition was going to put us into depression because the money that they made off whiskey all went to organized crime and they didn't get any. And after 13 years, they finally realized, oh, we better start taxing this shit again because just income tax and property tax wasn't going to be enough. And obviously.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. So we've got the line.
Yeah, this is what we're
got the line.
You guys are sipping on.
Well, this one this is the wheat emotion.
Oh yeah.
Wheat emotion.
That we tasted when and so right after we were there in Kentucky and we came back like a week after, I ended up with COVID, and it wasn't it was about a month recovery, and then it took me about another 3 weeks to get my taste and smell back into order. So the podcast kind of, it was unbelievable. We went to Kentucky and all of a sudden the podcast started taking off, and it was running where I generate a lot of the traffic. All of a sudden it started generating its own traffic, but there I am laying in bed wondering if I'm going to make it another day. And as my wife laughs her ass off,
It wasn't that bad.
I had a, what would you say? I had a mental, I never dealt with anxiety before. And my wife and my son, who both had it along with me, they had no problem. But for some reason, I just was convinced, that this was it, but it wasn't. And so once I got back on track,
still here.
The podcast
kind of ghost of
back down. So I didn't have a lot of time to drink a lot of whiskey. I came back with a lot of whiskey, a lot of ideas for podcasts. So I'm glad that we're doing this podcast now, because most of this stuff I've tried since, but I've been saving it for the podcast.
Heck yeah.
So what is right now? You said you started putting stuff when you opened up the distillery. Was it 2016?
Opened up in 7. I started distilling in 16. Yep.
Okay. So the oldest that you have right now is, obviously, I can do math, 6 years old.
So early on, we pretty much just made moonshine. I do have some what's approaching 5-year-old moonshine now, actually, which is pretty neat. So that we started aging. We plan to release the world's first bottled and bond moonshine here in the next month or so, which I'm pretty excited about.
That's exciting. Now, when I was online, you did source some whiskey out of Tennessee.
No, that story was. Somebody did the story and wasn't correct. What happened was, and I've always done a lot of this, still do. That was a contract client of mine. So it's their name is it was David James was the brand. It's owned by a group of guys out of Georgetown, Kentucky, but we were just doing the bottling for it. So I've never sourced anything under my name. I do have, though. I had a contract client that couldn't pay me. This is like a year and a half ago, and they gave me 3 barrels of. At the time was 8-year-old Barton in exchange for what they owed me. So I took those. I actually just blended them the other day with some of my 4.5-year-old straight bourbon. And so we're going to do, it's not kind of like a fusion series, I guess, like what you see at Bardstown Bourbon Company, but I've got it finishing in French oak, toasted French oak right now. I think it's going to be cool.
It tasted really, really good initially without being finished. So I'm excited for what it's going to taste like once it's actually finished.
But I've got about 100 barrels this year that's turning bond. That'll be qualified for bottled and bond.
Okay.
Distilled. So, and I'm doing some finishing on. And really these barrels are just kind of falling in my lap. I had another client that had some excess Sauterne barrels, so I'm going to pluck 10 of ours out to fill up these 60-gallon Sauternes with. We're roughly 8 to 10 barrels to fill those up with, and then I'm going to start working on releasing a bottled and bond this summer.
And then the rum finishes.
Yep, I've got a rum finish out there as well that we're playing around with. It's actually it's a pot distilled rye bourbon that's finishing in a pot distilled 4-square rum barrel.
Nice.
It's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, I'm excited about just kind of playing around with that stuff.
How old's that?
The bourbon is 4.3 years old when I entered it in.
Yeah.
It's been setting for 2 months now. It's starting to take some pretty decent influence on.
You can smell it really well. You can smell that like funky rum on it, but the flavor it's influencing the flavor a little bit, but not as much yet. But you can definitely, like, nosing it. It's really funky nose.
Like.
That's right.
Yeah,
it's really definitely cool. More influenced on the nose and the palate so far. So I mean, I expect to see maybe another 2 to 3 months finishing on that before we start pulling it. And I think we're just going to do just a finished series that we'll sell through our gift shop around the time that we're going to start releasing our first bottled and bonds.
Let me back you up, Royce, if I may, on the moonshine that you've aged.
Yes, sir.
So what then, you're taking moonshine that normally or traditionally isn't an aged product. I mean, it's kind of like this morning was a very good year versus a bourbon that's aged. So an aged moonshine, does that not kind of approach bourbon in taste and in consistency or not?
Well, so we make what I call a traditional moonshine, which means it has cane sugar added into it. So it never qualifies.
Process.
That's
Okay.
right. Never qualifies as whiskey. Now we use grains in it as well. But when you add that cane sugar in over the time, we see it's really like a mixture between rum and whiskey.
This is the exact flavor profile that I got off it a couple months ago. It tasted like mango trail mix.
Awesome.
There is definitely
it's got
But
nuts
you're adding the
and-
sugar to hasten the.
Yeah, so it's like sweet, and I don't want to say salty, but just like nutty. And I think the nuttiness comes from the sugar and the wood mixing. But like it was mango, like absolutely mango trail mix.
The
nutty.
fruit comes from our yeast strand, which if you guys try our straight moonshine, it's got a green apple taste to it, definitely a finish to it.
So it's good.
Sorry,
But Xavier, it also, so it wasn't aged in new oak either. It's spent its entire life in used oak. At the time, I didn't have any Neeley bourbon at the time. So I aged that moonshine. The first 2.5 years of its life was spent in used 53-gallon Kentucky bourbon barrels. And then when I got my own moonshine and started dumping barrels, I would move it out of those 53s into Neeley barrels. So it spent the other going on 2 years in a used 25-gallon or 30-gallon Neeley bourbon barrel.
Okay.
So now what the first ones were 50, the first part was 53 and now it's in 25.
That's correct.
So one thing that I know, Super Nash does a little bit of home distilling, and he learned this summer, he took his moonshine and he put it in a 25-gallon, it might have been a 5-gallon. It might have been a 5-gallon barrel. And he put it in the attic of his garage in South Carolina.
Okay.
And when he was talking to Alan Bishop, and Bishop's like, you need to get that out. He goes, it's a 5-gallon. It's aging like fast. And I have some of it here. And it,
color.
Oh my God. And it tastes like burnt brown sugar.
Ooh.
Like he got it in time. But see this, he gave me this about December, and this is all me. This is when I'm feeling a little bit down. It's one of the, I mean, as far as
bring
like
you back.
Were you feeling down like an hour ago? Because when I came down the stairs, you were swigging it
like
right out of the.
There it is.
No, but I respect.
What were you feeling down about, Tiny?
I respect the moonshine aspect. I've met a lot of distillers like yourself, where the home distilling, some of the better distillers that are up and coming are coming out. They have that home distilling background, and then they understand just the grassroots earthy respect that you get from the home distilling, opposed to learning how to just run a still on a computer or all the different modern methods. There's definitely advantage to the modern methods. There's no doubt about it. You're running pot stills, but you still have to have that art form. But now the last thing why I'm saying this is that I get the feeling a lot of distillers, like when I was at Limestone Branch, they were doing moonshine. And they did the moonshine to get to the bourbon aspect and get the distillery off the ground. But I really think you're never going to stop producing moonshine, right?
You've definitely hit the nail on the head there, Tiny. So I tell people all the time, we're moonshiners that, I think we're making a world-class bourbon, but we're always moonshiners first. And that moonshine's always going to be around no matter how good the bourbons are doing. And you hear people say, we just struggle to get by using moonshine to get to the aged spirits. It's really been the opposite for me. I mean, my moonshine business has thrived since I've opened the doors, thank the good Lord. And, it's still doing really well. So, hopefully that continues on as we keep growing and open up this new one down in the mountains.
Yeah, and I honestly think that the way you look at the moonshine, that your history, that it's always been a part of you, and it's always going to be part of it. Yes, it's fun. It's great to make good bourbon, and it's a whole aspect. But then also, I get the feeling you're really having fun doing the finishing barrel type things, because it just this what would you say, era of whiskey has just kind of exploded, that where it used to be, even like 5 years ago, people were saying, well, if that's not a finished bourbon, was not bourbon, and there's no way they're freaking drinking it because that's finished and that's cheating, and you'd hear all this shit against it. But right now it's like you've got everybody, there's just so many people are involved in this, and so many people love the difference. They're not looking for the consistency, they're looking for the special, that, like you said, the trail mix,
those little nuances that separate them apart.
Yeah. And it's amazing what you can do with whiskey. I mean, and we haven't even, as you know, as a moonshiner, the distilling history of brandies, and I mean, there's so many things that used to be distilled that were lost, after Prohibition. Nobody really got into it, but there's so many different things you can do to make a bourbon, and different grains and different things you can use that just haven't been used, that are just wide open.
Yeah. I mean, hell, we just saw it with Leopold with the 3-chamber still. First time that still's been used in 100 years or something, I think it was, maybe 80 years. I mean, we're going through definitely a distilling revolution right now. It's probably the greatest time in the history of distilling for advancement of what we're seeing just all the way around. Distillers working together, sharing ideas, talking, just experiments. And like you said, the consumer, and it's being driven by consumers that are looking for that. And I think it's really cool. I mean, I consider myself a student of the industry. What you said, I finishing and making, I love all of it. I just love being around the distilling business, and I'm just very lucky, and just to be in the industry.
And speaking of doing amazing things, you've certainly done it with this Wheat Emotion. This was
thank you.
my brother model that we brought back from Kentucky.
So
it was just outstanding.
So it was a barrel pick from the distillery, which you guys do the 375 milliliter from, which is awesome. So it seems to me, looking online, that Rebekah, you kind of head up the barrel program.
Yes.
Yep.
I've been picking out barrels ever since I got here in March. Of March 2020, I picked out every single barrel except for one. And it's fun. And also naming them is fun. When my brother was here, him and his girlfriend were down, and I let them taste through a couple barrels with me. And they liked, I also liked the Wheat Emotion one the most, but they both said, yeah, we like this one the most. And I said, what should we name it? And Eddie looked at me and he goes, Wheat Emotion. And I'm like, you need to work down here. I need you here for some of these cool barrel names, because we do come up with some really cool barrel names sometimes. Sometimes they suck. I know that. Sometimes they're dumb names. I'm fully aware that sometimes they're dumb. Sometimes they're just funny. Sometimes people really appreciate the things we name them, and sometimes people just don't get it. But that's just kind of how it goes when you name barrels. And we name them after people sometimes. We name them after lyrics of songs or bands. Sometimes it's just funny.
Whatever makes us think when we try that, whatever kind of pops into the mind. And that's kind of the way I've always liked it.
The most amazing thing about that is a wheated bourbon, obviously,
right,
rocket scientist that I am. But your choice of malt gives that a kick. It almost tastes like an even blend of a wheat and rye whiskey, but it's not rye. It's your choice of malt and what that's done with the wheat base, and it's really unique. It's good stuff.
Well, I based that off the old Stitzel-Weller recipe.
So now this is, I believe it's 2.5 years.
That sounds right. I think it was 30 something months, maybe.
In a 30-gallon Zach Cooperage barrel.
It should say on the front of the bottle too.
It does. I believe it was right around 2.5.
I have a bottle just like that at home, only it's empty.
Yeah, you
That
had COVID.
Yeah.
I think
So,
Hey, Tiny, was that an 8-year air season barrel? Did it have a tag on it that said 8-year air seasoned, or is it a?
I think it was. I'm gonna go and look in my
here,
note.
I need a flashlight.
I'm gonna hold it up.
Maybe not.
Where would the tag be?
It would have been hanging on it, but let's see.
Let's see. Was it? Yep.
That was an 8-year air season barrel. I
Yep.
thought it was.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember when I
remember
was
them
there.
talking
I
about
mean,
that,
and
yeah.
and so how do you come about that? You have an 8-year. I mean, how do you stop an 8-year air season barrel from not being when they make it? It's like the wood. Do they have to chop off more because there's a certain amount of?
So it's an interesting story. So Zach Cooperage is their third generation owner's name is Zach Zimlick, and him and I are really close to the same age. And he swung by the distillery back in 2017, 2018, and brought me a barrel up. And him and I just kind of hit it off. I love the barrels. I love the story of what they were doing and the quality. And mainly, I love that they had an excess amount of 2-year-old air seasoned oak. And he calls me one day and he says, "Hey, I got something I think you'd be interested in." He says, when I was going off to college, he said, "I told Dad, I think the future's in this craft distilling thing." He said, "I'm an idiot." And I told him that I wanted to make smaller barrels. And he said, "No, smaller barrels, they won't work." Dads, sometimes dads do things like. So anyways, so what he was doing was he was taking staves that they couldn't use that were broke on the end, and he was just piling them up outside, and he was going to start making prototype smaller barrels by chopping off the ends of these staves and working on them. Well, he forgets about the pile of wood, the staves. He goes to college, and he comes back 8 years later, and they're still out there. And that's how he got that 8-year-old air season. It's the only 8-year-old air season stave in the world.
A doctor or a lawyer?
That's what I always thought. Was it?
It's 8 years, man. Or is it just 8 years to graduate?
All of us kind of go on the extended plan sometimes.
I
tried to hang
in the
around
fall of
as long as
'79
I
and
could.
graduated in the spring of '91, so I understand.
Yeah, I tried to hang around there as long as I could as well. But
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, it's 2.5 years. Now, do you have any of that aging longer, or was it ready and you did it?
There was some other ones. We got one of them we called The Usual Suspect. That one was actually our first 3-year-old product on the shelf.
So that was 36 months in a 30-gallon barrel.
Yeah, and that one was it was really, really good. I mean, it you could tell the age on it for sure. Which I know 3 years is not old, but for us, like, you could tell obviously the difference between something that's 24 and that one that was 36. But that was the oldest one we've had back. We have one more sitting back there that's. And
we just do it tiny. We pull those based off of taste. So we don't really look at age. Yeah, she just goes out there and pulls samples, and we try them, and then she makes notes in her phone there on that spreadsheet she's got of, well, let's let this one set 3 months longer before we try it again.
Last year we had the one that I'd gone out to the Rick House and I was tasting through some barrels, and I pulled the one sample and I smelled it right away, and I went, gosh, that smells just like a single malt whiskey. And it was young. It was only 21 months old when I tasted it, and I yelled out the Rick House, "Royce, are we making single malts now?"
That's just what you want to hear. What you want to hear? Your bourbon tastes like a single malt. I'm like, great.
He came running in there and he said, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Yeah, quit telling people that.
And I said, "Smell this." And he's like, "Oh God, my bourbon tastes like single malts." And I said, "Honey, this tastes delicious." I said, "There's nothing wrong with it." And then we sent that one into the San Francisco.
But right back to it, Xavier. It's that a lot of that comes from that malted barley.
Yeah, we sent it into the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, and we won a gold with that.
Yes.
Way to go.
Yeah, you let us taste that.
It was.
Yeah, I did.
When we were down there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
was
we felt special. I mean,
Yeah.
you made us your wife made us feel special. We started our vacation, we hit your distillery, and all of a sudden we left there like, holy shit, what's going to happen? And it was the rest. You just kicked off the rest of the week.
Yep.
It was
That's a tone.
unbelievable.
Yep.
You know, and just like anything else, like as you keep going and you go around and people start to know your whiskey because it's out there and people are talking and the marketing, it's the same thing with the podcast. All of a sudden, people who you've never met before you're standing out at the whatever, and all of a sudden you hear tiny, and you're like, "What's that?"
We were at the Jim Beam barbecue at Bourbon Fest this year, and we're in line. There's a group of people from Texas that all of a sudden say, "Hey, they're the Scotchy Bourbon Boys."
Yeah, they like freaked out.
Yeah, and then it's like, that's Tiny, and that's
Roxy, that's Xavier.
Yeah,
That's Roxy.
and then we go further down the next table. It's the same thing, and the one person says to my wife, "You're Mrs. Xavier."
And we're just like, it's fun.
You have people calling you out that you should be seeking them out because they're a distiller or an owner or whatever, and it's like all of a sudden we have this recognition. It's crazy.
Which is, well, it's not crazy. It's
great.
What we're trying to do. But but when you, like you said, when you try to do it and it starts to work out, and once again, you're dealing with, like, it's 2.5 years, but it's a 30-gallon barrel. That's a whole different, like, that's a part of distilling that nobody or very few people have really. It's all 53-gallon based, of how things and the aging and everything. And there's so much more leeway to do the smaller barrels and figure out that, and that's part of that's where your distilling and the moonshining aspect, where you get that expertise, where you kind of know that fringe stuff that's going on to get those really good flavors.
Right. Absolutely. And there's a lot more forgiveness in that 53 than there is that 25 and 30. So you just we're always trying to keep an eye on them.
Well, this one right here, you got to tell everybody about that. Now, just real quick, when I lost my taste and smell, this is the only whiskey I could taste that didn't taste like rubbing alcohol. The caramel, I could taste the caramel sweetness because I never lost sweet, so this whole bottle right there, that was during the time I was just, when I wanted to have some whiskey, because I was just so used to it, but I wasn't drinking, it was just like, oh my God, I can taste this. It's so nice to be able to taste.
Good to know.
It is.
I'm happy to know that.
I'll tell Papa about that tomorrow. He's very, very proud of that brand.
Oh,
my grandfather is.
And I'm not a huge flavored whiskey fan. Okay, I understand its marketplace because there's a huge. It's bigger. It's way bigger than the bourbon connoisseur market. I mean, flavored whiskey is like, it flows like water. But this does it for me. I mean,
thank you.
I could honestly, if I was on an island and I had to drink this for the rest of my life and that's it, I could do it.
A scotch.
A scotch. Yeah.
A scotch. Yeah.
So talk a little bit about it because it means something to you.
It does. So I designed those brands. We call them Papaw, Sizemore's Revenge. I've grown up my whole life. Obviously, you guys, I've talked about my dad's family and the distilling in the mountains. Well, I grew up on a tobacco farm over here and spent most of my time in the tobacco barn with my grandfather. And I'd hear all of his drinking stories from back in the day, all the stories. And I'd talk about a lot of those just on the back of the bottle. And he's in there. I hope you guys got to meet him when you were down there that day. Was he there, Tiny? Did you all get to meet him?
No, I don't think we did. There was an older gentleman, but I don't think it was him.
Okay.
He had a beard, but Rebecca told us who it was, but I.
Yeah, it was. I think it was a common customer.
Right. Okay. But anyways, hopefully when you guys come back, he'll be there the next time. He's a character, but he's in there every day helping me distill and helping run the distillery, and he gets up every morning at 6 a.m. I tried to get up earlier than him, and he just gets up an hour early. So I gave up on beating him to the distillery. And I was sitting there one day, and I look over, and he's actually, that photo on the front where he's on the barrel, he was actually looking at the cat, but he looked like he was asleep. And I snapped a photo of it, and I knew then, like, I want to make a brand around my grandfather and launch that while he's still alive and with me. I just thought that was a great way to honor him, and he's been a huge part of my life.
I'll say this: working in the gift shop, when Papaw is up there and I'm helping some other customers, and so he'll walk up and he'll talk to anybody. Every single time they will buy a Papa Sizemore product because he hands it to them and tells them they will be buying it. And they say, absolutely, sir, I will be buying this. And then he'll walk up and he'll grab the bottle from him and go, did you want me to sign it? I'll sign it. And he'll sign their bottle. And I'll tell you what, people absolutely love it. There was one day when I went in there and I didn't know that other guys were gone. It was me and one other guy, but he was not going to be there that day. And I didn't know that. But Papa was there, and I got there probably 20 minutes after we opened. And as I walked in the door, there's 6 people standing in there, and I'm like, oh no. And I'm like, were they going to try and go on a tour? And I go, are you guys okay? Like what were you guys coming in for? And they go, oh, Papa already took us on a full tour. He already gave us a tasting. He already checked us out with everything. And they had boxes of stuff.
But Tiny, it's cash only. It's cash only with Papa. He can't work the cash register. They had to go down the road to the ATM and bring cash back.
But you know that's not a problem because this is fucking whiskey. Because whiskey does not have a problem with cash.
No.
I'll tell you what, those people looked at me and I said, was everything okay? And they go, this was the absolute best distillery tour we've ever been on.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it. I don't know what he said to him. I don't even know how they heard him or how they understood him, but they thought it was the best thing that they'd ever done.
I can understand him.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He got drunk back in the 80s on Moonshine and wrecked a Jeep, and it run over the side of his face. So he's always had like a little slur to his words. So I can see how some people have a hard time understanding him. My grandfather.
Well, all I know is in working in the recycling industry, I get a lot of people that have a lot of different some of that Southern Cajun talking, and I've had all that, and it's like it always amazes me after about 8 months of not understanding a fucking word that they say, all of a sudden I understand them. And it's just I don't, it's like one day I walk in and all of a sudden I'm like, I actually understood what he said.
It's very strange. I used to work with some Cajuns when I worked up in the oil field. They flew them up from Louisiana, and I was the only person that could understand them because my sister had lived in New Orleans for a while, and so I kind of understood it, I think, a little bit better. But all my guys would look at me and go, "What did they say?" Speaking Cajun, it's just how they talk.
It's just a shortened drawl, combining words together. It's just unbelievable.
Wherever you come from, you think you're speaking newsroom English until somebody else points out how you aren't. And the classic case is, I've lived in Ohio all my life, and it was 17 years ago that Karen and I met Jeff and Rachel. And of course they really don't have a strong Midwestern accent, but there's certain words they say that we don't. But then they proceeded to point out certain pronunciations that we do here that nobody else does.
Because in the North, we speak the King's English.
but Canton, it's Canton.
Canton.
Yeah, there's no T there.
But they say
C-A-N-T-O-N. We almost don't pronounce the T.
But my favorite of all is when they say ball, they say balls.
Balls.
It's balls.
Balls.
I'm gonna make some calls. Yeah, it's just like everybody says it around here. You're just like, wow.
And we always, it's never where's my coat. It's where's my coat at. We're famous for the needless preposition at the end of the.
We honestly can't help that. Being North Dakotan, I try to get rid of that at the end all the time.
Yeah.
I'm like, that is not. You're whatever. I'm sending it anyways. That's just what it says.
And I was told that we say our like the double O's in words. We our vowels. We drag our vowels out. So we say like food.
Oh, or Jeff, like I say, if I say something's forever and ever, I'll say forever and ever. But Jeff will say forever and ever. And then, but my favorite word that you guys say is about. Say it the way you pronounce it.
About.
No, you used to say it a little deeper than that. About. About. Yeah.
Here's the thing.
We've bastardized your speech.
Yes, you have. Yeah.
Here's the thing. No one ever knows where I'm from until I actually say where I'm from. And they go, "Oh, where are you from?" I go, "North Dakota." And I never sound more North Dakotan than when I say the word North Dakota.
And that's true because people say, "Where are you from?" And I say, "Wisconsin."
That one as well. Yeah, say,
that's all you gotta say.
Wisconsin. Yeah, say what? Once we say where we're from, all of a sudden it's like it just attacks like our vocal cords.
Like, that's it.
Yeah. Exactly
so
like
you reloaded that program in your brain, and that's what's going to control your vocal cords.
We can't help it.
So if you like warm buttered caramel corn, you will enjoy this flavored whiskey.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it's like, drinking liquid buttery caramel corn.
I mean, as you know, Royce, the whole aspect of bourbon is usually vanillas, caramels, butterscotch. You could get some that'll give you chocolate finish when you're dealing with those.
Some.
For me, yeah, lots. But my favorite thing growing up was vanilla and caramel. So obviously bourbon, but then you take moonshine and you add in caramel flavored salted caramel whiskey. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, this is like my dessert right there.
It does taste like dessert.
Unfortunately, this is what you could sit and drink and not realize how messed up you're getting because it just goes down really smooth.
I can guarantee you one thing, Tiny would be drunk on that island.
Yes, and that's the way you should be, right?
That's true.
So the other one we had is when we were there, you had the high rye bourbon that we bottled and got the name it.
Okay.
So this one's called Tiny's Rye.
What was the barrel number?
Oh, let's see.
Right on the front.
Yes, it does.
Flashlight.
See that barrel number? 104 proof.
92. Barrel number 92.
Oh, that was a really, really good one. That was honeysuckle rose.
Old 92.
Yeah, that's a really good.
So that's a 25% rye, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's 25. Yep.
And that's honeysuckle rose. It's in a 30-gallon barrel. It was
104 proof. Yep.
Yeah, that was
we got some of that. It's also empty.
What barrel? Was it a 30 or a 25?
a 30.
30. Okay, so that's a Zach Cooper's 2-year air season.
I think this is what we bottled ourselves there.
Yep.
Yeah.
There should be one more clean one for you. There it is.
Oh, that's all right. Oh, you drank it for no reason.
I was a really big fan of that barrel. I really like that barrel a lot.
Yeah.
So the last, I want to ask you about this. Do you believe in a neck pour?
No.
No. Because.
Do you believe we're about to have a major problem in our marriage if you did?
No.
Not a lot of people do.
No, wait. We got this bottle from this guy who's blending. All right. And all three. So he sent us a whole bottle of it.
Damn, that was a good barrel.
And we sat down he was going to be on the podcast on Tuesday. So on Monday we opened the bottle and it was weak and there was not a lot of flavor and there was some bitterness and we just opened it and poured it.
And the nose was so, even though it wasn't like over 100 proof, the nose was just ethanol. I mean, it was just.
Yeah.
So I knew I wasn't that impressed, off that pour that night. So it was a snow day the next day. So I basically put that bourbon, I read about it on his website. I put it up against a bunch of different bourbons that he did blind. And me and Roxy here, we did it blind. And I put it up against Eagle Rare. I put it up Barton 1792 like they did, okay?
Right.
And Horse Soldier too was the other one. And we could pick it out between those. Now I put it up against Basil Hayden. Now this is a bourbon for everyone. And it was really tough to go up against Basil Hayden because it was 86 proof and whatever. But the next day when we were doing it, it definitely had picked up flavor on you could smell it better.
It was very.
And you could pick up some of the flavor. Yeah. It was now
opened up, oxidized a little
bit.
Right.
It was night and day. When we did the podcast, I brought the bottle and it was sitting there. I opened up the bottle and that nose I could smell that fucking bottle from 5 feet away. I mean, it was like, holy shit. It's like all of a sudden these cashews and whatever. So I'm just saying, when you put it and you seal it and all the little bit of, let's just say, undesirable chemicals that kind of come out into that air, sit on the surface. You know what I mean? They hit that surface bourbon. And when I mean, I could tell you how to get rid of a neck pour.
Yeah.
It's gone. I'll tell. I mean, I didn't think of it till the podcast. I'm sitting there podcasting. Well, how do you get rid of a neck pour? Well, you just fucking.
The first time someone told me about neck pour, I went,
just turn it upside down.
Yeah. No shit. No, I've never thought of that. Nobody's ever told me.
You mix it.
Yeah, but
I do. I mean, it is true though that once you open it up, it's going to start getting opened up. And if it's been in the bottle for a while, like it's not going to be good.
But
and,
so you should open it, let all the out, and then seal it and then just shake it the fuck up.
Give it a
yeah, then that surface, because I think on the surface, if you're just opening it and pouring it, someone's like, if you bottle chug it, it mixes, right? But I'm just like, when you pour, you just like, you pour like that.
If you very slowly move it over and you don't do anything and just like everything stays there, I don't know. I mean, it's going to mix. Just give it a little toss, maybe.
But now someone actually said on responding to the podcast that their grandpa 100% said, you don't just open up a bottle of whiskey, you shake it up before. He was taught to shake up a bottle of whiskey before he opened it.
Yeah, it does make sense.
Where you do the opposite for champagne.
It's true. Well, you can,
unless you're celebrating, I suppose.
Champagne already has the carbonation. You're going to release more carbonation and blow the cork across the room or through the ceiling.
Yeah.
So ceiling.
Yeah. So that gets me this particular barrel.
Yeah, mine's gone.
Because that was very good, and I'm not
that doesn't stand in the glass very well.
Rye fan. As you know.
My opinion, that when you're distilling properly and really good, and you've got the mash bills, that you can, if it's a little bit young, just say. Now, talking with Bishop, he likes the grains to come forward in his whiskey, and he's aging in a controlled environment. He doesn't do the hot extreme colds, but he also isn't using the barrels to filter anything out at all. When he's doing, like you pot still, when you're pot stilling, you can make sure that your runs are pure and there's not, whereas when you're column stilling, there's some of it that has to be removed in the barrel. There's no doubt about it. When you're, beam.
And a lot of it that actually can never be, you know what I mean? It never does age all the way out of it.
Right. I mean, there's a dark history to that.
Right.
I mean, everybody, if you're not aware, usually your hangovers are based on the impurities that are in the whiskey or in the distillate that you're drinking. And some places, I've even heard some bigger places leave that in there because it yields more distillate.
And you would think with the column, which is essentially a fractional distillation process, that you would be able to get out pretty much most of the bad part.
No, column.
You can if you run two different types of column still. The Kentucky, you got that beer still. 3 little plates on the top. It's made for just essentially stripping it out, and it runs to a doubler which is pretty much nothing more than another plate, and then it comes off the still. If you run a traditional coffee still, it's got an alkalizer beside of it. If you fractionalize it out that way and it comes back up, then you can start pulling those apart,
Exactly.
Xavier. That's when you can start rectifying her off more. But nobody in the United States that I know of now runs a traditional coffee still. There's some of them down that they make. I know there's some down in the Caribbean and there's some over in Scotland, but I don't think anybody. Adam Stump has got one that sort of runs that way, the way he designed it off, to where he can make some fractional cuts off of it and bleed the heads off. But for most beer stills in Kentucky, just the way the column still works, you can't really remove any of the heads. You can cut tails by controlling steam temp, but
Right.
But the head is
that's where you got those. That's that methanol, that acetate, the acetone. That's the real bad hangovers. I mean, I'm real susceptible.
I'll say this.
Well, where does it go? Is it just diluted then because of the volume that they're producing, or
No,
how do they get it out?
they try and age it out. That's the key. The charcoal filtering. So a lot of places that are doing that, they do a heavy char barrel.
That's your char fours, your alligator char. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then that'll pick it up and drop. It's not going to get it all, but that's what they're shooting for. So that's why their younger whiskey will just floor you, and then their older whiskey will, it's just is a reason why you want to age it longer, because it takes it out.
I tell people
when it comes.
I tell people all the time, you can make a great young whiskey off of a pot, and if it's cut right, it should be smooth off the still. But normally a column distilled product is going to get smoother over time, and just because of what Tiny said, that and the angel share takes care of it too. Yeah. The acetate, the acetone, the methanol, these have I lost my train of thought there for a second, but they have a lower boiling point than ethyl alcohol, which means their flash point is lower, which means they should evaporate off faster, if that makes sense. So you'll lose some of them in the angel share too.
So I was doing the neck pour thing. What is it? Acetanol? Is that it? I was trying to say the word. What is it's I couldn't come up with the chemical.
Oh, acetone?
No, there was acetone, there was acetate, and then
methanol.
There was the one, it was
acetaldehyde.
Acetaldehyde?
Yeah, that's it. Acetaldehyde. Thank you, because I was trying to say it, and I was just like, every fucking distiller is just gonna be like,
we're here for you.
Face.
Yeah. That's one thing. I know a lot of things, but I can't say them all.
How you feel?
I'll say this too, when it comes to like the difference. So I have always been a drinker for my entire life, and I can drink anything, and I can drink a mix of things always. But since being here, obviously I, for the most part, only drink our bourbon or our absinthe or one of our products. And so that's what I've been doing for almost 2 years straight. And now whenever we go out somewhere with friends and they're doing some sort of bottle share, or they're sharing some older whiskeys, if I drink too much of that, and Royce can attest to this, I am horribly, dangerously hungover for a solid 24 hours of straight death, where I can drink. I don't want to tell you how much of this bottle I can drink in a night, but it's a lot, and I will have no hangover the next day. I might be a little bit tired, but I feel fine the next day. I'm never sick. I'm fine the next day when I drink too much of this. But something else, at this point, I have cleansed myself of all the.
And when she says something else, she's talking about column.
Column distilled.
I understand. Right, and there are some.
It's so much so that even when I do taste something, I know if it's a column distilled product or not. Mm-hmm. I can taste it and I'm like, that's from a column, isn't it? And sure enough, it is, just because I can taste it. So column distilled stuff absolutely wrecks my life whenever I do drink it.
No, it's not. We're bashing column still.
I'm not trying to bash it. I still love a lot of those products.
Great whiskey can be made on a column still.
Absolutely. Yes. I have a hard time drinking it now.
It's a good part of the distiller's toolkit.
Yeah.
No, I completely understand what you're saying, because it's just like that. That's why I can't wait to get back down by you guys, because there's an aspect of the love of making bourbon for people, or moonshine for people, that translates into the kind of person that you are, and the people that actually, are making and care certain part, about it. But then there's also a skill, like you said, on a column still to mass produce whiskey, but still make a good product. But if there's any answer to anything, when you look at Jim Beam and they're opening that new distillery, which is more a craft distillery, it kind of explains the direction whiskey is going.
Very true.
But
I've spoke with Freddie a few times about what his plans are and what he's looking to push through that craft distillery. And he's going to start pushing the envelope of bringing, a lot of times a column still product comes off, especially off the doubler, like 140, 145 proof. He's going to start trying to push the envelope and bring it on down to where it comes off at 110 or 115 off the still. Something I've talked with Jay Peterson at Artisan. He's doing that. He was so used to running on a pot still. He's trying to figure out a way to replicate off of a column to that pot. And I think that once again, these are advances that we're seeing in the industry that's never been done before. Caleb Kilburn's another good one with the sweet mash and the way he controls his fermentations. So here's the thing about it, Tiny. If you can control a fermentation good enough to not make any heads, then that column still's perfect, right? Because it's efficient, right? But you don't have the heads that it's bringing over in it. The only thing you might lose out on some of the oils that you get off that pot. But, just something that's, theoretically, if you could not produce heads in a fermentation, your column still should be able to run and produce a really clean spirit like that.
So it's almost like horse racing with yeast. You get that yeast to produce at the right level. It doesn't produce those negative things that are going in, and you get more from the run because it's efficient and it's not producing a byproduct, and that's the goal. It's amazing. I just love the process as you have to. I mean, there's so many different places to affect flavor. And as an artist, I understand that. And you're an artist in your own way, because you have a palette of all different flavors and tastes and what you put together. And then you have your family recipes and you've been trained, but then you add in what you want to add in based off of advances in technology, advances in knowledge, because people who ran pot stills or versions of pot stills in the backwoods were going off of total feel. They didn't have all the tools,
Right.
And now when you have all the tools and you're a true artist, you really can start to produce some damn good whiskey.
Absolutely.
And you're seeing it, right? Wouldn't you say over the last 10 years, the amount of whiskey being produced across the United States, people accepting whiskey from everywhere, and then understanding the difference in the aging process. Like you age in Colorado, people are aging in Colorado. It has a certain flavor, right? Whether you like it or not, but there's a certain amount of palates that love it. There's a certain amount, but same thing. Kentucky, there's a certain amount of people. If you don't like caramel or vanilla, the big Kentucky whiskey is not going to be your favorite, is it?
Right. Yeah. Yep.
All right. So,
what about this?
That brings us to the absinthe, because I took a kind of a break from absinthe, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
There was a health issue that we kind of maybe attributed, but I'm over that. And
that's like, I used to have a problem with drinking, but now that I'm an alcoholic, it's no problem at all.
We got over it.
Exactly.
We're over that.
It's over now.
So let's do it though. I even have, if you want, we can try and light this fucker on fire.
Yeah.
Light it on fire.
We're opening up.
This is
our
our
family absinthe.
I always find that the absinthe fountain is just based off of, it's more of a romantic fantasy, because
It's interesting that you're sharing it with Xavier, though.
What?
It's the two of you that'll be sharing this little romantic thing over here. The
Yeah,
two of
but,
you.
there you go.
But the French, you know what the French did with absinthe. It's just
Don't be
like
judgmental, damn it.
it was an aphrodisiac. There was a certain amount of partying. It took the place of wine for a while, but it really in those circles where it was insane. I think
1868. There was I think that was the year there was a blight.
Yeah.
That destroyed the grapes, and they took the recipe from the Swiss, I believe, but the French took it and ran with it and started producing absinthe, which is Latin from the plant, the Artemisia absinthium, or as we call it, grand wormwood. And wormwood itself is a corruption of it comes from the same root name or idiom that vermouth comes from, but it came into English as wormwood. And grand wormwood is the principal ingredient.
so. Where do you get your wormwood?
It comes from Poland, actually.
So you pulled it from Europe.
We did, yes. I get it from a supplier out of California, but yes, it's in Poland. We're actually going to be, my mother's got it completely planned out, but we're actually going to be growing some of our own wormwood on site. Obviously not near enough for what we need to make all of our absinthe, but it's going to be cool to just add some of it that we can pluck out of there.
When
My mother's absinthe garden.
Are you starting that this year?
We are. We were going to do it last year, and we couldn't pull the trigger in enough time with the landscaper to get it done. But it's going to be out in front of the distillery, Tiny. What she's planning on doing is putting like a sitting area out there. People can enjoy a cocktail at, but beside of it, you got wormwood, and then you've got fennel over here, and you've got anise growing over there, and lemon balm, I think, was the other one she's going to grow.
Oh, get that over the top. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I want you
That's how it's done, folks. Thank you very much.
Okay, pick up the spoon and get another sugar cube, and you do it. It's just like.
Well, let's not move the glass.
So you saw that I have an absinthe glass there, and then I have a bourbon.
Yeah, then I get, second-class citizens get the bourbon glass.
Yeah.
When you're drinking absinthe.
It's now on my leg.
Yep.
There we go.
Yeah.
Here, pour on that.
Hey, at least you hadn't lit it on fire yet before you
dump a Molotov cocktail.
before it dropped on your leg.
Yeah.
You could have had a sugary, fiery mess.
Yes.
The Russians used to take out German tanks with that.
What? You see the.
Just a little background on it, Tiny. I've actually haven't even been making absinthe for a year yet. I think I actually started.
It's been a year now.
No, I hadn't played around with it until March, I believe.
I'll do the shot.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
You can dump the shots in. So I'll pour them.
So yeah, we
That's good.
were first exposed to absinthe on our trip to New Orleans.
The Crescent City.
Yep, went down to New Orleans. I'd never been there, and it
Orleans.
was wild, and we had a blast. And
It carries, to me, it's always carried the same mystique that like moonshine has. That illegal, illicit. I've always been fascinated with absinthe as well, and I personally really love the flavor of it. I love trying different absinthes.
Oh yeah.
now this is certainly not romantic at all, but we ate a lot of really rich, cheesy, spicy food in New Orleans, and someone said, "Oh, absinthe settles your stomach.
Right.
It helps, with the acid reflux," and that is true. It saved me on this entire trip to New Orleans. Anytime we, if we ate a big rich meal, we come back and have a little absinthe, and
All right, it's getting set on fire.
Fire.
Turn that one. Okay.
Don't drop it on your lap again.
Yeah.
No, I'm staying away from it. Is that good?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good.
so
Yeah, you're on fire. They're both on fire. Okay.
Okay.
So we're walking down Bourbon Street and we stumble across this place. I'm sure you saw it if you're down there. Ye Olde Absinthe House.
Mm-hmm.
And I had wanted to try absinthe since.
Just burn yourself.
Yes, I did. That's the one part.
Yeah, you can't see it, but it is. There we go. It's out.
Since I saw, of course, where everybody else learned about absinthe, the History Channel. And absinthe was supposed to cause hallucinations. I think the only hallucination was at the time we thought that $19 a drink was a good price, that was the hallucination. Now, of course, Grand Wormwood, people said that there was a study done, I think, in the 1950s or 60s that said that had a chemical structure similar to tetrahydrocannabinol. But though it's similar, it's not. I mean, margarine's similar to oil, but it's not oil. And it does not have tetrahydrocannabinol in it. However, it has a substance,
Thujone,
which you even find that in basic sages and whatnot. And thujone is not a hallucinogen. However, it is a neurotoxin.
Yeah.
Right.
And the whole thing was,
I believe it binds to the GABA receptor like THC does.
It does, yeah.
They act on the same receptor, just not in the same way, but yeah.
on the same way. But
They're good.
yeah, let me give it a stir here with my quasi-religious absinthe spoon.
So when we were at your tasting room and we tasted the absinthe, he couldn't resist the bottle. Now, it was one of the better absinthes we tasted. Now, we've tasted Allen's
Beautiful
and,
jade green.
you know, although one of the, have you seen the Key West Absinthe Company's logo of Death in the Afternoon?
I have. I was actually down there when they launched.
Yeah, that was in that label makes me want to drink absinthe every day.
It looks like a party.
But you can't.
I personally love Death in the Afternoons as well. I love champagne and absinthe mixed together.
Alan told me Alan and Bill Hockett, who coincide, they both work together on that. They both told me they'd get me a bottle.
I gotta
But I'll have to come down to Key West with you guys when you go to the next one.
Dear.
When we caramelize the sugar and then dump the water in here, it produces an effect called louching, where it gets cloudy, and louching is actually the French word for cloudy. But
Well,
nice louche on that.
Fun fact about it: you do not need the sugar to make it louche.
No.
We know.
It'll absolutely louche.
so
I
when we-
always thought that was the sugar caused the louche. I didn't know that it was just the water that could
Xavier, on the front of that label, that green fairy is actually my wife on there.
Yeah,
Let's take a look at that.
did
Yes.
hear that. We did hear
The joke was that if I hallucinate, that's what I would see.
Yeah.
I don't think you're hallucinating. You see her right now.
Absolutely. And then we named that absinthe Hunter S. Thompson, which I'm a big fan of his work, is a Louisville, Kentucky native. A lot of people don't know that. So we were trying to think of what to name the absinthe, and as we were designing it, and I thought, hey, Fear and Loathing in Kentucky, it kind of makes sense and fits into that theme. So we did that as a tribute to Hunter.
Great name. It really is.
So I don't know if you guys know this, but if you just drink absinthe and you just have a couple, now that's all it takes for me, you'll get the buzz, but you don't lose your motor controls. This is why
don't go driving your car.
Not that I'm saying, I'm saying,
machinery.
but what happens is that as an artist, so I digitally paint, I print out on canvases. They're $400 or $500 canvases to get them printed, and then what I do is I paint over the top of them. So as an artist, knowing there's $500 investment in it, I kind of am like worried about fucking it up. Okay.
Yeah.
I just sit there and I'm conservative, but give me 2 absinthes. I won't lose my motor control, and I will basically not give a fuck what I do. And I produce some of the best of my artwork after having a couple absinthes. But I was doing that one day, and I was working on a painting, and it was just coming out great. And my wife's like, "Well, let's just break for dinner." And she gave me a glass of wine. And after the one glass of wine was added into the absinthe, I couldn't even fucking hold that brush up to the thing, let alone paint with it. So that's the aspect of it. That's what I love. And the same thing with writing. Like Hemingway would stop off at that ye old absinthe, go upstairs into the artist's room, and that's the key to absinthe, is that you don't actually lose the ability to paint. All your motor skills are there. You can paint a straight line, you can concentrate, but you got that same, fuck it attitude.
I wouldn't want a tightrope walk though. And let me. We sat there. We drank, one glass. Shelled out another $38 for a second glass. By that time, Roxy and Mrs. Xavier had caught up with us at the old absinthe house.
We were getting hit
And
on
they're
by
saying,
two absent fours.
And she says to me, "How are you doing?" And I looked at her and I said, "I am flying."
Yeah.
At that point in time, they couldn't put a spike through my foot. Nail me to the floor. As long as they kept the absinthe flowing, it wouldn't have mattered. Just keep the glass.
Absolutely.
Go-
And this,
it was
Xavier,
fantastic.
this is how you end up cutting your ear off and mailing it to an ex-lover.
Exactly. It seemed like a good idea.
I can see
Now,
how it happens.
we're walking
While
back
you're
up
painting.
to our hotel, and we're holding hands, and it's like all of a sudden I am not feeling my feet hit the ground. I mean, and I got to be fair, it wasn't just 2 drinks. We were stoking the fire at Pat O'Brien's all afternoon,
Yes.
drinking hurricanes and glasses like that. But at any rate, I said to her, I felt like a float in the Macy's parade.
Well,
My arm was
also-
a feather, and if she would let go, I was just going to
We
fly away.
stopped off for some pizza. And I swear to God, to this day, I'm from Wisconsin.
It was
and I
the
love
best pizza
pizza.
in the
It
planet.
was the best pizza I've ever eaten in my
really
life.
wasn't.
It was not, but I know it was. And then we all retired to our rooms and we walked downstairs.
He's
the
going to
next
go
day,
there. He's going to
And
go
we
there.
both looked. We all looked at each other and said, "What?"
Well,
the
not
fuck
at each
was
other,
that?"
but at our wives.
At our wives.
Yeah,
And we
Jeff
did
and I
not-
didn't look
I
at
had
each other.
no idea. I think the word menage a trois was invented when they were
Okay.
drinking absinthe.
No, we were just, everybody was, the couples were expressing the effect.
I
that
think
the couple within
Royce
the
and
couple,
Rebekah
we
get
weren't
it.
trading couples.
I mean,
Right.
you
Hey,
make
No.
whatever.
What
Thanks,
happens in
guys.
New Orleans stays in New Orleans. But no,
Right, exactly.
then they told us, we took this tour of one of the famous above ground cemeteries down there, and the tour guide, she was asking us about that. We talked about the absinthe, and she laughed about that a little bit. And she said, we have a phrase in New Orleans that you've heard of, absinthe makes the heart grow fonder. He goes, what we say is absinthe makes the tart go longer.
The main thing is, absinthe is a great drink.
So I have a question. Do you two have any absinthe stories since you make it?
I'll tell you how we figured out. It was kind of funny when I was trying to design, when I was working on the absinthe, I couldn't get it to loose right. So I'm looking at it and I'm like, I think it's starting to loose right. And we were actually watching the Moonshiners TV show in bed at that hotel. And the lady on there does a fantastic job. Seriously, I'm watching the show and I mean, it just looshes up so nice. And I'm like, yep, back to the drawing board. It didn't, ours ain't loosing like that. And then, well, yeah, there's plenty of stories with that absinthe. I don't know if I want to go into some of them.
Come on, just one.
Well, when we submitted into the San Francisco World Spirits competition and we won the double gold on it, we actually got somebody had called in and said that there's no way, because we hadn't been making absinthe very long, that we had to have used the other person that had won it 7 years ago's absinthe to submit it in. So we actually had to then resubmit the absinthe in for a mass spec, which they come back a little bit afterwards. But I mean, I'm like, look, I'll bring you guys up here if you need to. I'll show you. I get that it's I have only been making absinthe for all of 4 months now, but my whole team's been involved in it. Like, we just happened to have figured out a good recipe. Yeah, but it was wild.
So
that whole thing was wild.
Here was the problem. The batch that we sent in, we really enjoyed it. We didn't even know we were going to send it in. We sent it in just because we were hoping to get a pat on the back and like, hey, you guys are going down the right path. You're doing a good job.
Yeah, Tiny, I didn't think this was going to be the end of the road of the absinthe I was designing. We were just submitting into San Fran at the time, and I thought, hey, let's see if we get some honest feedback on it.
Yeah, we if they told us you're doing it right, or if we didn't get any recognition at all, then we know we're doing it absolutely wrong. We didn't know what was going to happen. So then they said that all that stuff, and we resubmit in something. But the problem was
we had drank all of it.
We drank almost. Well, we did drink everything that we had here, but luckily I had sent my dad and my brother a bottle
Oh
of
my God.
Oh my God.
and I'm
You can't make this up.
I'm talking to my dad on the phone and I'm just livid. I'm like, this is such bullshit that they're making us do this. Like how do they not know? Like, does this happen to everyone? Like, there's just like people saying that like that's wrong and they're lying. I was like, how is this even? And I was like, and I don't know what we're gonna send in. And my dad goes, wait, did you need your absinthe back? And I go, wait, I go, do you still have some? I thought Eddie drank it all. And he goes, oh no, I took it from Eddie and I have it at home and I just like sip a little bit at night. I've probably got like 2 ounces here. He had 4 ounces left in his bottle. So he overnighted it to us.
They needed 2 ounces for the mass
Yeah, they
spec.
needed 2 ounces. He, how would he know what's left? He just was guessing.
Which here's the thing about it, Tiny. I was never, besides bringing them down and showing them, the ace in the hole I always had is that that's probably the only absinthe in the world that's made with actual moonshine in it. So it's got corn and cane sugar derivatives inside of it that through a mass spec, it would have to show compounds that can be created through that. So I was completely fine with it. I just needed to get something back before I had to try to run another batch real quick.
Right.
That's what we did. I overnighted it from North Dakota down and then overnighted it to San Fran the next day.
Yeah, making another batch would have been a total fuck fest because then you'd be like, am I doing this right?
Exactly.
As far as in your head. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you wouldn't have been able to recreate, and you probably have recreated it, but at the same time, but that's not really ideal situation.
Every batch.
Well, once again, guys, I've only been running this for, like she said, I mean, right around a year. You know, I'm still learning every batch I do and, you know, figuring things out and understanding. And, you know, it's been an interesting ride with the absinthe. It's been wild the whole time.
Well, I think you've reached your pinnacle there. This is really outstanding.
Thank you.
It's the best absinthe. When we came back from New Orleans, we were on an absinthe quest. We drank every absinthe we could find. We had absinthe being sent to us from out of state.
From France.
We ordered
we got some
Jade
Edouard
from France,
and
that was
whatnot.
fun.
And it was good, but this is number one.
It's right up there. I mean, but you know, that's one thing as a distiller that what I see is that the main thing that you do, that it's yours, one,
Unique, yeah.
and it represents your family, and then you totally give a shit. Like Rebecca was saying, you were willing to live in a basic janitor's closet and sleep in one to get this started. It's like not everybody, most people on the planet are not willing to fucking do that. And so there's passion that, although society looks at things differently but the reality of it is that when you love doing what you do and you care and you're trying to bring something to people, it definitely shows. And that's what I love about this industry, whether it's Freddie No, or it's you or Bishop or whatever. You just know there's that passion that is Jade Peterson, right? That's that you get when you're talking to these people. And it's what I love is that as trying to represent and get the word out as podcasting, you get to understand the process, but then you also get to meet these people who are so passionate about something that everybody loves. And that's the fun part about doing this and getting to know you and then hanging out. Like, I just look forward to the next time I'm down there and just hanging out with you. I'm close enough where you're just right on the edge of just going down there, and I'm like, any weekend I can be there.
Oh, yeah. Well, come on down.
Yeah, it's like I'm just waiting for the shit weather to go.
I might be tagging along with you, just so you know.
Come on down too, Xavier.
I would love to.
But you know, being there, it's just definitely your family is represented, and I just look forward to what you're doing in the future. And you know, and it's and as an age spirit, it's even so much funner. It's so much more fun. I like to say funner, but at the same time, it's like you're laying stuff down that even down the line, you might have a 20-year-old. I mean, you're that young. And that's the cool part about the whole thing. So.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, maybe some of that family longevity will last and I'll get to do this for a long time. I guess I really hadn't thought of it a lot of that way, but I mean, I guess if I make it to, 90 years old, I'll have done this as long as probably anybody has, because I started so young.
Yeah. I mean, what we're not even giving you the due diligence of you're the youngest distiller, the owner of a distillery in North America, correct?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And I know I was when I followed those LLCs at 24, and I definitely was then.
Right.
I probably still am, honestly.
Yeah.
And me and Dad, it's been a lot of hard work, but him and I have worked together on it. He's a huge part with building everything that we do down there. But that's allowed us to not have to take on any investors or anybody else involved with it. So at some point in my life, I'll own outright 100% of Neeley Family Distillery Incorporated. And that's a big deal for me.
Yeah, I think so. Considering when you look at the Shapiros owning Heaven Hill still, like, who knows what you're going to be when you're, it's just like, you just might start buying up other distilleries.
Yeah.
Next venture, honey.
Yeah.
Although I could see one thing that would be, well, it's kind of there, but there's a network of the next generation distillers, which you are. And I think that network could really mesh together, because there's one of the things that's so great about distilling, and it was set by the last generation and the generation before. Everybody's very open and caring about the whole industry. They look at it as a whole. But this generation, not only do they care about the whole, but they're all talking.
Right.
And that's a really that's fucking cool.
It is cool.
Absolutely.
All right. So that was fun. That was a lot of fun.
Sure was. That's some good absinthe.
Do you have anything else you want to add before we end this? I mean, is there anything I didn't cover that you guys just want to get that point across?
No, I don't think so, guys. I think you guys done a really good job, and me and Becca just really appreciate you all taking your time to have us on and talk with us. And we're really excited, to be a part of this.
Man, the pleasure's all ours.
Yeah, we just talking to all people like you and giving out this content, that just makes the whole thing just worthwhile. We have a blast, and
this is a fun podcast.
Keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Yes, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your time.
You're doing such amazing.
Yeah, we realize, believe me, make no mistake, we realize that you're not just sitting around twiddling your thumbs saying, gee, I hope somebody calls me the podcast. we realize that, you have to make it work too. And we appreciate your time. We really value it. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting us on. This was a blast.
All right. That was Royce and Rebekah Neeley, the Neeley family distillery. Make sure that on your way down on 71, if you're coming from Ohio, just stop by when you see that sign.
Don't miss it.
Because we passed that sign a couple times and we regret it.
We
won't ever pass it again.
It'll be the best tour you ever gone on. It's really awesome.
And you might get pawpaw, right?
Yeah.
I get it. Absolutely.
Bring some cash.
You're lucky.
Yeah.
All right. We are the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. www.scotchybourbonboys.com. Check that out. We are on all major podcast formats. We are also on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. When you're at our podcast, check out everything, but also go to the right-hand corner and click that Patreon button. Make sure that you figure out one way to support us, either through our Scotchy Bourbon Boy Glencairns or our t-shirts, and you can buy them outright on the website, right?
Yeah.
All right. We'll let little Steve-O, our guy that allowed us to stop having to pay Elektra Records, our YouTube money, who did the cover of the Alabama song. We visit him every Sunday night at the Gervasi Stillhouse. He's there
twice a month.
And it's www.littlestevo.com. Check it out. He's got his album up there and everything. But
You're a heck of a nice guy.
Yep.
Oh, show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. Show me the way to the next whiskey bar. Oh, don't ask why. Oh, don't ask why. For if we don't find the next whiskey bar, I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die. I tell you we must die.
All right, there we go. We laid that down.
Oh yeah.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
So much fun, so much good spirits.
Mhm.
Thank you all.
Thanks, guys.
It was a blast.
I'm gonna do this last. This
Which one is that?
The
Is that
pumpkin pie.
Oh, the pumpkin pie.
No, you said that it doesn't have to be refrigerated, right?
No.
It
does
doesn't,
not.
because it hasn't been.
No,
It's fine. No, it's so good. I don't know. I don't know. You guys got the pumpkin pie.
That's about the right time when they came down. We probably just
Well, put it this way.
September.
My favorite thing on the planet is pumpkin pie.
Mhm.
Okay.
And you'll
And this-
you'll like this.
I love it.
Oh yeah, it's
Did you want some?
Cheers.
no, I'm good.
It's so good.
So explain.
Make a pumpkin pie moonshine with almond milk.
Oh,
So what do you do to make this?
So I get the cream from Galloway. So the base for it is my straight moonshine. And then we use natural flavors. I sweeten it with cane sugar and then add in that Galloway cream. And then I control the pH level on it, which is how, with that increased proof and controlling the pH at where I want it at, that's how I get it to not have to keep it refrigerated the entire time.
Well, it's not been refrigerated and it's still just as good.
it's delicious.
Actually, I think it's better.
That's probably one of my favorite creams that we've had.
Do you make that every year?
We do.
Well, we've made that one only once so far.
Yep. We'll bring it back again this year as well.
Is it hard to make?
It's the hardest of all the flavors that I do. Once again, just controlling that pH level. It can be pretty difficult, but I really enjoy working with the creams. I personally love them, and they sell really well. I've got four of them on the shelf right now.
How can something that good that makes you drunk not sell well?
That one's definitely like one of my favorites. I actually convinced Royce to do the pumpkin. I said we should do a pumpkin, and he's like, I don't know. Do you think people will like it? He's like, isn't it too late in the season? And I was like, I think that people will love the pumpkin, and it's been a crowd favorite, I think, for sure.
That one and the orange creamsicle. I really enjoyed the orange creamsicle as well.
We sampled.
Yeah, we had that. We had that
That
while
was
we're down
very
there.
good.
Both
That was
were
really good.
delicious.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely
my
good.
love of pumpkin pie overran the
Yeah.
orange.
Absolutely. I tried not to make it, and I tried to balance it out and not make it too pumpkin-y is what I tried to do with it. I didn't want it to be overwhelming.
Oh,
Also, not that I would want you to necessarily use what you have to do this, but things that you can do with the creams, obviously the obvious ones are like pour it over ice, just pour it in your cup, put it in your coffee. But one of our friends made a cheesecake with our cream, and I bet that the pumpkin would make an amazing cheesecake.
I bet it would.
And they also made a whipped cream with it as well.
Oh wow.
I bet that I know you don't have much pumpkin to use, but I'll bet that pumpkin would make an amazing
I bet
cheesecake.
the
you
other
would.
thing it would make that would be fucking amazing. My wife on the holidays makes it actual eggnog.
Yeah.
But if
that'd
you
be
use that to make eggnog,
Oh,
that
my
would be
God.
like off the fucking charts.
It would be.
There's raw eggs in it, but
Yeah. I mean, it's the real eggnog.
yeah, she's always made the real eggnog, which is fantastic. I love eggnog no matter what, but what she's always made. But if you use this, that would just
We should just make an eggnog.
I would say I want to try that next year around Christmas
That's
time.
good.
You
Unbiased outsider.
I
I can
want
tell
to
you
try
that
that
their
eggnog.
eggnog is delicious.
Yeah,
well,
make an
maybe
eggnog.
maybe we can work it out that she'll make it and somehow we'll get it to you.
That'd be great.
We should just make an eggnog moonshine and cream.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That'd be delicious.
Oh my God.
I tell you who else makes a really good eggnog is Jason Bronner. I don't know if you got to try his or not that he does down at Bourbon's Bistro, but he just it's like a semi bootlegged eggnog. It's really good too. It's actually the first eggnog I really liked was Bronner's.
I
used to use George T. Stagg in it, but those days have obviously passed.
Yes.
Not because, my favorite is Buffalo Trace. It's like we're against the secondary market. We don't like the secondary market, but yet everything they do creates the secondary market.
Mm-hmm.
Here, how about this? Release George T. Stagg once a year in a huge batch so that most people can get it. And then the secondary market would go away, opposed to release it, trickle it out a little bit by a little bit, and then the secondary market just goes crazy. Buffalo Trace is a master of marketing. There's no doubt about it.
Yes, they are.
It's ridiculous.
I mean, the fact that Weller Special Reserve, which is a weeded bourbon, but you got Heaven Hill producing Larceny, which in my opinion, if you open it up and let it sit a little bit, once again, the neck pour is gone. It is a fantastic weeded bourbon, and Special Reserve but for some reason, the way they release Special Reserve, you can trade 30 Special Reserves for a bottle of 15-year-old Pappy.
My God.
It's like they pay you based off of what you're paying. And it's like, I got a guy that's just buying up in Ohio. We get Special Reserve and Antique 107, and they'll pay them dollar per dollar. And then they can turn around and sell that for way more than what they're selling the Pappy for.
Right.
It's crazy.
That is crazy.
It is.
Anybody who pays $125 for a Weller Special Reserve has lost their mind.
My thoughts exactly.
I mean, I seriously, I'd come down here and drink this forever and skip the Weller Special Reserve forever. I mean, every single week bourbon you put out, I'll drink that left and right, and it's just like, I mean, I'm not saying it's bad, but it's just an average. It's their everyday bourbon, and they're just.
It's fine.
Right.
But aren't we all happy that the bourbon market's just gone crazy? I mean, it's just good.
Yep.
You guys are doing it, and I think Royce won because we're still recording. Did you stop recording?
No.
Okay. What you're doing for your family legacy is that just imagine what you've put on with Bo Cumberland, talking about all the feuding and everything, and then what you're doing now. And then in 100 years, when we're all gone, what you've basically taken it, put it on the map as far as the legitimate aspect, but you're also giving every aspect of what you've been taught and what you've learned and loved, and you've got that now. And there are going to be people exactly like what your family has done, and that legacy. You've got that brought. One thing, you brought it back. You brought it to the mainstream because it existed. But if you didn't do this, it would just kind of fading off, right?
It would, yeah.
But now your whole family legacy is right out there. People are seeing it. You can market it because that's what the world is like.
It ain't in the rearview mirror anymore.
Right. And then
I'm really lucky, Tony, just to have a guy like Bo Cumberland. I mean, incredibly talented, lucky just to know the guy that can help me preserve that.
No, Bo is fucking phenomenal. I actually we went down, he's doing the Alan Bishop experience. So we were invited down to be a part of that. I met Bo. He's fucking awesome, as you know. But then I asked him if he could document a couple days when we go down to Kentucky Bourbon Festival this year with the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. And he's like, just let me see. I'll see what I can do. You know, and I'm just like, that guy is fucking phenomenal. There's no doubt.
Yeah, he is.
And he's talented.
Bo is great.
Yeah, he is very talented.
Bo does, I mean, pictures, the videos that he comes out with. I hate being recorded, especially when I need to be like remembering all the things for it. And Bo is like so supportive every single time that I have to record things. Now I've ran him out of the room.
No, I saw that. I saw that video. It's like, are you watching? Are you fucking watching me?
He's fucking watching me. Get the fuck out! Me yelling at Royce.
Yeah, but he put that in there because
it's so
phenomenal. And if you don't know exactly what's going on, you kind of don't know who you're yelling at. But I knew.
Yeah, it's like I look like a psycho if you don't know any better. But it's funny. But like Bo does such a good job of like chilling me out, and like I do feel really comfortable with Bo, and I can like Bo is so easygoing, and I can just chat with him. And like if I sound dumb, he'll tell me like maybe switch up how we say this, and like he's never mean if you're doing a bad job. He's so supportive anytime you film anything.
He's a director and he knows how to get what he needs.
Oh, good.
But Justin, this should make you feel really good. So we, Sandy No, which is Fred No's wife. We're talking and so we basically, she is like family to the Scotchy Bourbon Boys. She is the bourbon queen to us. We have had so much fun with her and I've got to know Fred and Freddie through her and then through other things. But just so you know, the first time we asked her after meeting her and whatever, and asking her to be on the podcast, we went into the man cave and she basically kicked, when it was time to do the podcast, she kicked Fred and Freddie out because she didn't want them to know. So when you told him, are you watching? And you kicked him out, I just instantly thought of Sandy No kicking out Fred and Freddie No to do the podcast because she didn't want them to hear what she was saying, because there's an aspect she could say more if there was nobody around.
And also you just feel more comfortable. Royce ran in the bathroom, but you also just feel more comfortable when they're not necessarily with you. So I mean, like I 1,000% like that's how I was. Like I didn't want Royce standing there because all I'm doing is questioning, am I saying this right? Because also I hadn't been there that long when we recorded that stuff too. And so like now I feel a lot more comfortable recording that. But I still am such a wreck every single time we record. We just recorded a whole absinthe, Sazerac, a whole thing the other day, and I was just like a nervous wreck the entire time.
No, Rebekah.
Just can't help it.
Rebekah, you have to stop. You have to own this fucking thing. No, you have to stop being in. No. You've got.
Here's the worst part, Tiny, is I used to actually. I was the main actor in high school. I was the lead in every single play, every single time. So much so that they had to say, sorry, we can't have you be the lead because it looks like we have favoritism. And so we need you to not be that. So we're gonna have you be a backup role because otherwise it's gonna look bad for us. And I did so good. And this is gonna sound stupid, and I know this, but my male lead, at one point we were in school and our teacher was going around asking everyone, like, what do you think you're going to be when you grow up? And I was like, I think I'm going to be an actress. And for whatever reason, my male best friend, who was also my lead, we'd become mortal enemies, I guess, for some reason. And he laughed in my face and said, there's no way you could ever be an actress because you're not even good. And I swear to God, even still, I remember it still, and I'm like, I am good at this stuff. Like,
seriously,
it's so stupid that I still think about that. And I was in like 9th grade, and I'm 34.
So I have to get you in the same room as Peggy No Stevens, because seriously, you at Neeley with Royce, you could fucking own the shit out of the next generation of women in distilling. And I'm just saying, you've got the sleeves, you've got the look, you've got the attitude. There's no doubt you have to just basically don't, like what I've learned. You know, people tell me her mom is always like, why does Jeff say fuck on the pot? Why does he put fuck on Facebook?
We can't help it.
Because no, straight up, it's not we can't help it. That's what whiskey fucking is. Whiskey is kick-ass, take no names, but then there's the aspect of bourbon that's for the elite and whatever. We can fit in all aspects, but you have to just own it and stop worrying about what other people think, because there's no way on this planet when you're drinking whiskey you can please everybody, because there's people who like chocolate and there's people who like vanilla, and it's just that simple. What your goal is to please the people who you please, and Royce is going to please the people who he pleases, and you just need to kick ass, because seriously what you guys got going there, that with the husband and wife whole thing, you're not just a whiskey wife, you're part of it. And that's unique. There's not a lot of people that have their wives fully promoting, and that was impressive to me when I went down there. You definitely completely sold Neeley family, and you are Neeley family. And so
I believe in everything that my husband does. I believe in all the products that he makes, and every single one. You know, I get to taste them all. I get to go out there and taste them when they're younger. I get to taste different barrels, different mash bills, and all that stuff. And like, I believe in everything that my husband does. Like, we're going to be putting our rye out here, our rye whiskey. It's not a high rye bourbon, but actual rye whiskey out pretty soon here. It turns 2-year-old in April. And it is absolutely fantastic. It's so good. Did I let you guys taste
come down for some of that?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Whatever you do for it, I'm not a fan of rye.
But I am.
No, he is. But
I need you to taste it anyways.
No. I've tasted MGP rye from like 50 different places, and at 47 of them, I would spit it the fuck out. That 95 rye, 95.5. But there's 3 places for whatever the fuck they did or what their taste. It's just delicious. So I would definitely like to come down and try the rye.
Absolutely. If you guys just come down here, even if we don't have it out on the shelf yet, I'll just drill into a barrel and you guys can taste it.
We need to try the rye, Jeffrey.
Can we put that on Facebook Live?
I don't care. Yeah. So this is specifically for, I'm going to say I don't want to say the 3, 4, or 5 of you, but you know who you are. That can come down and we'll drill into a barrel. But if you guys come down and I'm here, I will drill into one of our rye barrels. You can taste
Well, you're going to be there because I'm going to schedule it with you.
Exactly.
I'm just show up
just
and
tell me.
Royce there.
Yeah, if it's before our rye's out, I mean, you can taste it. That's not a problem at all.
Okay.
To say that is one of my most fun things to do when people come down is let's go drill into some barrels. Let's taste some stuff I haven't tasted yet. And I'll literally go out
and just so you know, you drill into barrels phenomenally. Just keep doing what you do.
It's the most fun thing to do. And my favorite is when I go out there, if I bring some, friends or whoever out there, I'll look for ones that I like. If there's one out there that I love, obviously I'll drill into that one and have them taste that. But if I see one that I've never drilled into, I'm like, shit, let's drill into this one. Let's see if it's actually good or not.
Do you have a barrel pick program yet?
We actually have 2 barrel picks coming down in the next 2 weeks. One is from the Kentucky Tornado Survival. I don't remember exactly what they called the fundraiser, but the Tornado fundraiser. So Rich's Proper in Covington, Kentucky. They won the auction on that, and so they'll be picking out a barrel here coming up. And then we have another bourbon club will be coming down here soon to pick out. I think they're going to pick out 2 barrels and do one rye and one bourbon. We don't actually have the rye labels yet, so I guess we'll see what we do with that. But we're still, people are picking out barrels when they want to pick up barrels. So
cool.
Well,
if people call and want to do them, we'll do them.
So we basically in Ohio we met the woman who now heads up the Ohio Liquor barrel pick program, Ann Dimmick. And she basically comes from Wild Turkey, went to Watershed, and then is at Ohio Liquor. And she's trying to open up Ohio for barrel picks where it's not so hard. So she's going to be walking us through the process. So as this keeps going down, we definitely would love to come down and do a barrel pick with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
As it keeps going and you get closer.
If we can do it, then
if we've got the barrels.
Yeah.
Well, that's what it comes down to. Hey, Royce, what it'll come down to in the next couple of years is when you have the barrels, you're just going to basically be like, hey, Tiny, come down. I got a barrel.
Absolutely.
And seriously, I'm not looking for the barrels. I'm looking for the barrel. No.
Absolutely. I'm sure we can fit you guys.
It's the same thing. I was talking to Bishop and he's like, well, when you come down, you can pick a barrel. But he goes, all the barrels you're going to be picking from are going to be loaded. I'm just like, yeah, okay, thank you. Because as everybody knows somewhat that the people at the distillery know those barrels. Yeah. Because, have you experienced that barrel that when you're going to try now? Do you guys make a small batch yet?
Nope.
No, it's all barrels, right? Yep. Do you intend to make a small batch?
Maybe we'll see. I really like the just running single barrel game that we've been doing. It's working.
Yeah, that seems to be a really good marketing plan.
The single barrels, they're more fun, I think.
100%, but it's not the mainstream.
Right.
I mean, for instance, it's like I've been talking to my guy where I buy my liquor, okay? And he's made me understand that the everyday guy who walks into his store and wants consistency is the mainstream of what bourbon is. It's just kind of like Jim Beam has to taste like Jim Beam. Jack Daniels has to taste like Jack Daniels. And they're not looking for anything else but that. But that's not what you're here for. That's not what craft distillers are here for. So,
yeah, that's 100% true. I mean, it's kind of just your daily drunk is not going to try and drink our stuff all the time.
It's also not your goal, right? To make a daily drunk, right?
I mean, it can be if they want to come down and drink a different thing.
You're not going to say no.
Not a daily drunk.
Or do you got one?
Yeah, but so before you met Royce, what was your go-to bourbon?
Before Royce?
Yeah, before you met me.
Probably Rare Breed was probably one of my favorites. And then for a cheap one, I love drinking Old Granddad, frankly. Old Granddad and Old Crow. Those are my two, low end ones. Would get a lot of shit for Old Crow, but I also am a very big fan of 1969 Old Crow Chessman. That's my favorite bourbon of all time. And so I just would always laugh about drinking just regular Old Crow because it is so low shelf. And it's actually not bad. Like people give it a lot of shit, but it's not bad
at all.
Nope.
No, it's funny you said
early on we had it. We
drink it. Yeah. It's funny you say Old Granddad. That was the first bourbon I ever drank when I was.
It's delicious.
I won't say how old. My aunt, rest her soul, after the funeral of my grandfather, which would have been her father, we went to her house and.
What'd you do with the?
She had. Pot of coffee on and poured everybody coffee and set a bottle of Old Granddad on the table and everybody flavored their coffee and I did too. Nobody said I couldn't, and I've liked Old Granddad ever since.
I mean, Rare Breed. Basically, when I had Rare Breed, it was the first bourbon that blew my mind.
I love rare breed. Have you had the rye?
I have not, because once again, I'm not a huge fan of rye.
I'll have to try it. I like
it's
rye
good
whiskey.
too.
Okay. Yes, the rye I thought was I love the rye. The rare breed rye was absolutely delicious.
You remember meeting Mrs. Xavier when we came down there? She's a rye girl. She loves rye.
Get the rare breed rye, and you will. I guarantee you'll love it.
All right, just so you know, that's going to be a podcast, and when it comes out, I'll just definitely let you know that podcast went out, because I've seen it. It's like lately, rye's been on the shelf, and rare breed's been off, and I always knew at $36 that wasn't going to happen. So
exactly, yes.
Yeah, that wasn't going to stay that way forever.
Here.
Oh, getting another absinthe drink, huh?
She's going to do.
So I'm a huge fan of IW Harper.
Yeah.
I love IW Harper. And this is their new, we just got it. It's their IW Harper Cabernet cask.
She likes IW Harper 15
year.
And believe it or not, she's made hot toddies with it.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely believe it.
I'm like, dear, do you really want me to use the 15 year to make hot toddies? She's like, yes. You buy that for me, make it.
Make me a hot toddy with IW Harper 15 year. Smells good.
So you guys got a rum finish coming?
Yeah. Yes, we
and
do.
Then one other one, right?
The rye finish, and then the blended ones in the finished French oak.
Yeah, I've got that blended one in the French oak. I've got a barrel of rye and a barrel of wheat finishing. One's in a Barbados rum cask and one's in a Jamaican pot still rum cask. And then we put out 2 barrels of brandy this year. I just something I made. I got the wine for free from a local winery 4.5 years ago, but I just figured I'd reuse those barrels too. So we've got them finishing in a wheat and a rye as well. And then I've got 5 barrels we're going to be putting in Sauternes casks that are coming up.
Explain Sauternes.
So it's called the Noble Rot. I'm not super knowledgeable on it. I'm still learning about it, but essentially it's from a region in France. And that's where they grow this type of grape at, and it's called the Noble Rot. There's something that they do with it out in the fields, and it's like a late harvest they do, but it gives it a really unique type of profile to this wine. And I'm looking forward to. I'm going to actually split it up, and I'm going to do 2 wheats and 3 ryes in it.
Okay.
Just let them finish out and see what they do.
Sounds good.
So how many of the French oaks do you have?
3 of them.
3 of them. All right. When do you think release will happen on that?
We'll just have to wait and see. You know, I'm going to say probably within the next 5 to 6 months, they'll be ready to go. But we'll just have to, I just play all that stuff by ear or by taste, Tiny. So I'll try them. If they're ready to go, then we go with it. If not, we just hold it and let them set.
Yeah, I mean, now, last question: have you ever let it sit too long?
Not yet, but I'm just starting with these finishes. So I'm watching them. I really am. I'm tracking them really well because I don't want to. I have had things that have set too long. I've had them from, I'm not going to name the distillery, but I've had them before and they've let me try them at 3 months in, and man, it was great. And then at 6 months, it just really overpowered it. And it was actually an absinthe barrel finish that this happened on. And they knew it when it happened, and they actually brought it to me to show me the difference in just what 3 months can make. So that's why I'm tracking these things like every 2 weeks I'm trying them.
Okay, so that once you learn as you go along, then you shorten when you try them because it's getting there, and you're like, oh, that's almost there. Let's leave it, but then you don't leave it for 3 months. You might 2 weeks.
That's right. Hell, you might even try it every week.
Okay.
Down to the point.
That's a lot of trying, isn't it?
It is. It's just terrible, I tell you. Try all that whiskey.
It's just like anything else. You've mastered it as far as tasting. Are there times when you spit?
Yeah, that's a common question I get asked. Like, how much do you drink every day? I don't always drink everything. Sometimes I'll spit it out, especially if I've got like paperwork to do that day or I've got a meeting I've got to go to. I don't want to be, wishy-washy in those, but For the most part, I don't drink a lot down at the distillery. Becca will pull samples of barrels that she really likes, and then she'll bring them up here to the house. And after we have dinner, we'll go through a flight of them. And that's kind of when we pick through, these ones are ready, these ones aren't. And then she starts designing the names out for them.
All right. That makes sense because I was talking to Ohio liquor representative today, and she was going down to Wild Turkey, and they, for the state of Ohio, were going to pick 15 barrels.
Wow.
Just think about that concept.
Yeah.
How many barrels does it take to pick 15 barrels?
I was just saying the palate fatigue off of that. Like that's the other thing is I'll get palate fatigue. That where everything kind of starts tasting more similar, and you don't want that when you're trying to pick out good single barrels.
Especially it's like we'll have some podcasts where there's 6 or 7 to try, and by the 6th or 7th, and you're doing this in an hour, your palate is like, they say it's fatigue, but it's blend. It just blends together. It's just like no longer are you tasting any difference.
Right.
Yeah, especially people who are doing awards. I've heard that so many times when judges are doing awards, blind, whatever. What they're tasting in the morning, what they're tasting at 4 o'clock after tasting all day, even if you give it a rest, it still all blends together.
Absolutely.
All right, you guys. That was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty awesome podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We're going to stop recording, but you'll still be there. So we'll end this now.
Is it this?
No, right there.
This?
Thank you everyone on YouTube for joining us. We appreciate it.
Yep.
The watershed story. A watershed moment might be pivotal, but it might also be quiet and fleeting. It could be a monumentous occasion, a cause for celebration, an enormous triumph, or a small daily victory. A watershed moment could be a rekindling or an observation or a gathering. Any opportunity to relish with friends and family. It's whatever you choose to cheers to, who you're gathered around, and whatever's worth celebrating. We founded Watershed Distillery on the principles of community in 2010. We wanted to live in, work in, and contribute to the community in which we grew up. We aimed to create spirits and stood apart in quality and character. Along the way, we set out to form a community of our own, one that could gather together to savor, celebrate, and enjoy good spirits and company. We've grown from a tiny little still and 2 guys in jumpsuits to a dedicated team of over 40 people and 2 much larger stills. If you're ever in the area, stop by so we can introduce you to our team and pour you some of our award-winning bourbon. Creating it was our watershed moment, but we want to hear about yours.